I'm Michael Washington. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I've written several books over the years. Many of them are available on syncfusion.com as well as amazon.com. Let's look at the agenda. First, we'll start off with the introduction. I'll cover who I am and why you should possibly listen to me. I'll also cover what is AI and why AI has limitations. We'll then dive into the limitations of AI. The three things we'll cover is that AI cannot do math very well. Also, it cannot write fiction stories very well. Also, and this is a little controversial, but it cannot create applications very well. Who am I? Why should you listen to this guy? I've had over 3 years of experience in AI-powered development. I've been using AI coding since ChatGPT first launched. The two projects that I'll be covering are AI Story Builders and Personal Data Warehouse. The things I learned from doing those projects is what I'll be covering in this presentation. Let's dive in. Why do we like AI? Two main things. First, it enables greater productivity. Also, it does write text and code faster. The question is it good code? Is it good text? What is AI? AI can be defined in two different categories, prediction versus creation. Machine learning is the older and more traditional AI. What it does is it analyzes large amounts of data to find patterns and relationships. It then uses that information to make predictions. For example, a stock price or the price of a vehicle based upon past sales. Then there's generative AI. This is the AI that people think about recently, things like ChatGPT. What this does is it uses the learned patterns to create new content, things such as text, images, code, or even audio. So the key difference is that machine learning finds patterns to make predictions, whereas generative AI creates new content. Let's first cover the concept that will go throughout this presentation, and that is AI is just a tool. It actually does not think for itself. So understanding this is crucial to working with it effectively. Basically, AI is not a living thing. Living things have their own desires. AI does not have any desires. AI requires human guidance. Everything that happens is because a human told the AI to do something. So it's never thinking for itself or doing something that you don't like. If it does something that you don't want, it's because you told it to do that. That may not have been your intention, but that's what's happening. AI has no independent thought. It is simply an algorithm. So the key takeaway is that AI is a powerful tool, but it requires human oversight and direction at all times. Now, let's dive into the limitations. First up, AI can't do math. It may seem like AI can do math, but it can't. What LLMs do is they predict words. They don't actually calculate. Now, large language models are text generators, not calculators. For example, early AI models, if you asked it to do 17 times 23, they couldn't come up with the correct answer. Current LLMs, like ChatGPT 5, can actually come up with this answer. However, it is still not calculating. The solution is to have the AI create code that actually performs an actual calculation. For example, C# or Python. Let's examine some solutions to this dilemma that AIs truly don't calculate. If we look at ChatGPT 5, this is an example I did just last week where I had a data set in Excel that I attached and I asked it to please calculate the average sales in the attached spreadsheet. After clicking the button, ChatGPT opens up a window where it creates a Python script that basically does the calculation. So therefore, we can see that ChatGPT actually uses code to actually perform calculations. In developing my own applications, I created an application, an open source application called Personal Data Warehouse that basically follows the same example. When you open up the personal data warehouse, you can import tables of data and then select views and then select the button to create a new view. In this case, we're going to create a view for the compare employees tables table. You have a choice of using Python or C#. In this case, I selected Python, and the initial script just simply loads data from that table. However, the program allows you to select the AI button, and when you do that, it opens up a window that allows you to enter an AI prompt. In this case, we're asking it to look at the customer and sales tables and total up the total sales. Again, we're going to select Python for this example. The AI will then generate a Python script that will actually perform the calculation. At this point, we'll give the view a name, we'll click Submit, and we'll see the answer. Let's look at a video. Next up, with the limitations, AI cannot write fiction. AI cannot write fiction. The main issue is that when writing fiction, the story requires consistency. When generating long-form content, AI struggles to maintain consistency. The main problem is character consistency. AI will basically forget things about the character. Also, there'll be plot holes and contradictions in the story. The root cause of this is a limited context window of the models. Even a model that does have a very large context window, a lot of the tokens are spent in processing. So there is not a lot of tokens to keep track of the entire story as well as do the processing. When something falls outside the context window, as far as the AI is concerned, it doesn't exist. Therefore, in a long-form story, you will find that the AI simply cannot make a coherent story. This limitation in making stories is actually something that applies to other things that you will try to do using AI. Certain applications which require the AI to keep track of large amounts of data will also come under this problem. Let's examine solutions to this problem. For a solution to this problem, we'll look at another open source application called AI Story Builders. What AI Story Builders does is it creates an intelligent context management. Basically, the core idea is that using normal C# code, the program will act as the memory and provide context for the AI. Key components of this is essentially a database of story elements, a prompt composer to basically feed the AI important information at the time it's needed. This is done using a concept of vector retrieval, which allows the code to essentially retrieve information that is semantically related. It uses that information to feed back to the AI. This example, as well as the previous example, actually uses text files for storage, which shows that you do not need expensive vector databases to use this pattern. The result is, with AI story builders, that the stories remain consistent. This is an example of the object that is fed to the AI to keep track of the story. You will note, however, with this application, AI story builders, this master story context is fed for every single paragraph in the story. Meaning, I found when testing the program that trying to use this concept, for example, an entire page, actually did not produce good results. And the reason why is that the human needs to guide the story in a more granular fashion, paragraph by paragraph, rather than page by page or chapter by chapter. Let's look at that master story object. What gets collected? A system message, overall about the story, the style, that sort of thing. Story level metadata, for example, a synopsis, of course the title, which is very important for guiding the AI. Then there is a chapter by chapter breakdown that allows the AI to really see the overall story, and things like location details. There's also a character list and attributes about those characters, things like hair color, age. Also, the recent paragraphs that come before the current paragraph and any other related context. Another extremely important thing is timelines. This allows the AI to know if it's, for example, in a flashback and a character is, say, younger than they are later on in the story. There's also additional specific instructions that the author is able to provide the AI. So the AI receives all this information for every single paragraph. This allows the AI to make intelligent suggestions and rewrites for each paragraph, which allows the author to write the story faster and easier. This is a deeper look into the properties that are sent for every paragraph. So you'll notice that a lot of information is being gathered and managed by the program, not by the AI. All this information is fed to the AI. This is what I found is required in order to keep the AI on track. This concept is something that I've used in other programs. Let's review what AI Story Builders does. Basically, it creates a program that makes the AI just a collaborator. The program allows the AI to maintain coherence by constantly feeding it the information it needs so that it doesn't worry about running out of context window. This, of course, reduces repetition that could happen if the AI context window caused it to constantly forget things and therefore repeat itself. So what you have is an iterative writing process that allows the author to easily track things and use the AI to, on a paragraph by paragraph basis, rewrite, adjust things, and even have the AI suggest continuing chapter content that is coherent and consistent. Note that the human is still in control, so AI is only a collaborator. Let's look at AI story builders in action. Next, we'll look at the New Story Wizard. Click the New Story button to open up the New Story Wizard. Enter a story title and a short synopsis and click the Create Story button. AI Story Builders will now create the story. It will create the characters, locations, and timelines, and the chapters that you selected. We can now examine that timelines have been created, locations, and characters, all based upon the synopsis. We'll click on the Chapters tab and the Chapters dropdown, and we'll see that 3 chapters were created. Chapter 3 has a synopsis as well as the very first paragraph, as well as Chapter 2 and Chapter 1. We'll scroll down and click the paragraph section to initialize editing, and we'll click the AI button to open it. In this case, we won't enter any instructions, we'll just click Save. AI Story Builders will continue writing the story from where it left off and add a new paragraph. Instead of just clicking save, we'll click the auto detect attributes save, which will detect new attributes that are not in the database or new characters. It will display it in the select character attributes, where we can select those attributes or characters that we want added to the database. And we just click add characters and attributes to do so. Next, we'll look at handling timelines and flashbacks. AI Story Builders allows you to define new timelines. We'll click the new timeline button, and we're going to create a timeline for the character Joanna as a child. We're going to set the time period for when she was a teen and describe her as a young girl. We're doing this so that we can attach attributes. We'll next select characters, and we'll select the Joanna character. There are plenty of background types, but here we want to select appearance and add a background. We're going to describe her at this time as always carrying a book and make sure that this is attached to the timeline we just created. We'll go ahead and click save. And now we'll return to the chapters section. We're going to create a new paragraph where we'll have a flashback. We're going to first select the characters button and make sure that Joanna is the only character in this paragraph. For location, we're going to select an empty location because this flashback won't have a specific location. Finally, we will select the timeline button and make sure that this timeline is set to the timeline we just created. Now, when we click the AI button, we will give it an instruction to create a flashback. AI Story Builders will create the paragraph. However, it will only consider information about Joanna that was on that timeline where she wears large glasses and always carries a book. When we look at the results, we can see that was done. Give AI Story Builders a try. Finally, let's look at the final limitation, which is AI cannot create applications. Yes, AI can code, but it really cannot create applications. Why do we say that AI cannot create applications? The reason why is architecture, not just the code, but the entire application. The reason is that AI struggles with complex systems. AI is a great coder and writes good code, but it's terrible at being an architect. Let's look at the problem. When asked to build complex applications, the AI produces code that works most of the time, but doesn't always work as intended. The reason why is that certain parts of the code, like modules, may be disconnected, or parts of the program requires files or logic that are just simply missing. When vibe coding, and vibe coding is usually the term used when using AI to write your code. With vibe coding, AI sometimes just makes mistakes, which cause a cascading series of bugs. The root cause of all this is actually back to that context window. The context window is only so big, and when something falls outside the context window, as far as the AI is concerned, it simply doesn't exist. This is a problem with constructing applications. These are the same challenges that we saw with AI story builders. Let's look at an example. I created this prompt which instructs the AI to create a program that allows users to respond to RFPs, which are requests for proposals. After sending this prompt, this is the result I got. Starting on the left-hand side there, that's the prompt. And then you can see in the black background, this is the response of the AI as it attempted to break down the program. At the bottom right-hand corner there, I said, okay, I'll keep what you have, and then I ran it. And then I immediately got an error. I copied this error and then sent it back to the AI that you can see in the upper left-hand corner. And then the AI says, oh, I see the issue. Of course, it's the one that created the problem, but okay, let's go ahead. And it works on the answer. Again, the bottom right-hand corner, I click keep. And the code then did work. However, when I looked at the code, I saw that in this example here, there's an extra column on the right-hand side. I don't know why that's there. So I tell the AI, hey, go ahead and fix this. It fixes it. Okay, great. When I click the button to create the RFP response, the output is not formatted very well. In addition, in the answers, it puts this confidence score, something that is not appropriate for this particular situation. So again, I tell the AI, please fix these issues. And it finally fixes the issues. So this is example of vibe coding. You really have to go back and forth. It takes time. However, in many cases, it still ends up being faster than coding it without using AI. In this case, the solution is to really accept the situation for being the way it is. You're going to have to go back and forth. You can't just tell AI to create an application and have the application just work. However, there are some things you can do to make the process easier. Now we will cover what I call vibe coding principles. There are three main things to consider. The first, how long your prompts are. You want to make long prompts. The other thing is to be very specific. Try to be as specific as you can. The third thing is something that a lot of people aren't aware of, but is extremely important, and that is to provide examples for the AI. Typically, I'll have a URL of the documentation of certain components that I want the AI to use, or even concepts that I want the AI to consider when creating code. So basically, short prompts are easy to make, but you will find that it will cause you to have to do a lot more back and forth. Therefore, you want to make longer prompts. I actually use AI to help me create my prompts. So looking at the foundation, you want to also provide context, telling the AI what type of application you're creating, whether it's a business application or game, is extremely important. Again, you want to have the requirements listed out. I like to actually number my requirements in my prompt. Another important thing is style. So the way your application, if it's, for example, a consumer application, or it's a serious business application, you want to indicate this in the prompt. It will affect the code that the AI creates. Also, the examples. Example code, URLs to documentation, or URLs leading to other sample code is really important and really helps the AI. Also, any other information that will really help the AI stay on track should be sent with the prompt. So let's review. We accept the fact that AI is bad at creating the applications because it's bad at architecture, therefore you have to do it. The solution is that you, the human, provide the blueprint. You need to design. Having the AI help you design, that may work. However, the human has to be responsible for the overall design. You have to design the user flow, the data structure, everything. Also, when using the AI, work in small chunks. Remember, you have the issue of context window, so you want to keep things small. And finally, make sure you use detailed prompts and try to make sure you provide all the information you possibly can. To recap, instead of asking the AI to write a login system, the best thing to do is to have the database schema, the authentication model, and all those underlying concepts defined and worked out, and then just tell the AI to work on top of the foundation you've created. The key principle is that you, the human, must be the architect. Here is a visual. The AI can create code, things like individual files, pages, controllers, service classes. However, tying them together, making them work, that's where the problems lie. Therefore, the solution is the human has got to be inside, part of the creation of the application, and then you'll find that the end result will be what you're looking for. So let's go over the key takeaways of this presentation. AI is very powerful, very useful, but it's just a tool. It does not actually think. It needs guidance. You, the human, have to provide that guidance. The human is required to provide oversight, detailed blueprints, keeping track of important information. So the formula to success is that you have to create the blueprints, provide the context, and then you'll find that the AI can give you the results you're looking for. Note, all the resources and all the examples are on my website, blazerhelpwebsite.com.